Hey there, guys and gals. This is the last lesson for Unit 1 of Algebra 1. And it's going to be a pretty quick one. It's really just a vocabulary lesson. We're going to be talking about graphs and things on this one, but we'll talk a lot more about graphs, especially linear graphs, which you'll learn is a straight line. But we're going to kind of get some vocabulary, which will apply to that, and it'll continue to apply further and further. So we're going to take a look at some vocabulary. So I've got a graph on here. Now, don't let this picture scare you, right? We've got a graph on here that appears to be something like a cubic function, but you don't need to know what that is. We're just kind of using this as an example of what we're talking about, of a vehicle to talk about these different vocabulary things. So when we're looking at the graph, we're talking specifically about the blue guy here. That one is the function that has been graphed, right? So that is the function. We talked about what functions are in this unit, right? I don't know. I'm recording this out of sync, so I want to make sure. I'm going to pause because I want to remember. We did in fact talk about functions. We talked about it last lesson, right? So y'all knew that already. I'm recording this video out of sync. I recorded all those other videos years ago. That's why my hair is different now. Anyway, back to reality. We just talked about what a function is, right? And you may or may not have learned about functions in your middle school classes or your pre-algebra classes or whatever as well. So what can we say about it? So the blue thing is the function. That's what. Sorry, I had gotta have my thoughts where they need to be. The blue thing is the function we're talking about. So the first concepts that we're going to talk about here, and the first vocabulary we're going to get is where the function is either positive or negative. Okay. So where is it positive? Where is it negative? So when we're talking about positive and negative for a function, we're talking about basically the y part. So if it is above the y-axis, it's not hardly going to show up because of the way I'm doing it. But if it's above the y-axis, so up here, then it's going to be positive. So let me kind of highlight all the places where this function is positive. Good grief. Cell phone, telephone. Pause. What's really dumb is it's a scam likely. All right. So anyway, everywhere where the function is above the x-axis, it is positive, which means that wherever it's below the x-axis, and one thing that it isn't illustrated real clearly on this picture that we're taking a look at is that this function, and this is I didn't even think to say this, but this function is, let me stick a regular layer in here. This function is continuing on further and further, right? It doesn't stop here. It's going to continue forever and ever. Just like if we have a line and we were to draw something like that, and it's continuing on forever and ever. Same thing with this. That's the kind of the type of function that we're illustrating here, is one that continues on. So it would continue being more, which is going to come and play even more in some of the vocabulary words we're going to talk about in a minute. So everywhere above the x-axis, the function is positive. Everywhere below the x-axis, the function is negative. So next vocabulary bit. So next vocabulary bits kind of sound similar, but they are different. So where the function is increasing or decreasing. Okay. So it's not above the axis and below the axis. We're not talking about those things. All right, that's not what we're talking. We're talking about for increasing, it's everywhere where the function is going up. Now, and we think about where the function is going up, and we kind of read our functions left to right. Now, you may have seen you may have seen some lines and things before, and like when they have a positive slope, right? They have a positive slope when they're going up and to the right. So that would be positive, whereas this would be negative. Right there, right? That would be negative. So we're talking about stuff kind of like that. Okay, same idea. So where is this blue graph going up? Well, it is going up, so increasing from here, so where it turns, and then it starts to go up again. Make this brush a little bigger, make all of our lives a little bit easier. It starts going up that way. It also is increasing. Again, we're reading this left to right. Even though our arrow is pointing down here, it's going up and to the right here. So everywhere from there over, it's also going up. So the only place where this particular function is decreasing is from kind of the top of this little bump right here and then going down. So we're reading it left to right. So as we're going from left to right, it's increasing, 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 and then decreasing, 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 and then increasing again. So we're talking about going up or going down, and we're reading it left to right as we kind of track that thing from left to right, which I think is actually reversed on there. Yeah, so it would be like this on. I'm kind of flipped from. Anyway, I think you get the idea. You know how cameras flip around and all of those things. You're modern young people. You know all of those things. Did I not finish spelling this, or did I just accidentally delete it or something? Who knows? Increasing. That's beautiful. All right. Next vocabulary bits are these, unlike the other two, these kind of have a collective name, right? They have a name together, and the name of these, there's there's still kind of two vocabulary words inside. Okay, so but this group has its own name, and it is the extrema. Extrema, which kind of goes like with the word extreme, like, so what are the extremes, right? And that kind of is going to give you a clue what these are. So there are two different types of extrema that we're going to talk about here. And the first one is a relative, sometimes called a local minimum, or a relative or local maximum. I don't know. That was an idea. Didn't work. I was going to try to just make this apply to both. I think that's going to be my cutesy idea was just never going to work. That's all right. So a relative maximum and relative minimum. So one difference that is kind of important here is that for these two, we are talking about a point. You know, on the other ones that we have been doing, on those other few, we were talking about not a specific point. We're talking about a space from this place to that place. For decreasing, it is decreasing from right here to right there. It's increasing from right here to infinity, continuing on forever that way, right? Okay, so that's what we're talking about. But for maximum and minimum, we're talking about points. Now, and we have to say relative maximum and minimum, or local maximum or minimum, because the absolute maximum and minimum are different, right? This one, which is really what we're going to talk about in our next little set of vocabulary, but the absolute one is infinity. It's continuing to go up forever and ever, right? So a local or a relative minimum would be this point right here. Excuse me, I did that backwards. I did my colors backward. A relative maximum, this is a top point. A relative minimum would be down here at the bottom. And a relative maximum would be this top point here. So within the scope, little scope, what is the highest point? Well, that would be the maximum. What would be the lowest point? Well, that would be the minimum, right? If we're talking about a straight line, which we're going to spend a lot of time talking about later, then it doesn't really have one, because it just continues getting bigger and bigger this way, and smaller and smaller that way, or vice versa, or all those kind of things, right? But for a graph like this, a function like this, we have maximums and minimums inside this little scope. Okay, last thing that we're going to talk about is the end behavior. Hey, let me do this this in a darker-ish color. Okay, so end behavior. Okay, so this sort of sets up a concept that that's going to follow you all the way to like calculus and stuff. We're kind of talking with end behavior. It's not particularly complicated. I think you'll be able to get it pretty easy, but it's a concept that you're going to see for a long time. It's going to come back into play further and further. So end behavior is, you have to think about it as this function is going in a certain direction. This time, you know, on the increasing or decreasing, we're always reading left to right, right? But on end behavior, we're talking more about as the function continues to get more left, what does it do? And as the function continues to go more right, what does it do? So in this particular function, as we continue to go left, what are we approaching? Okay, so it doesn't ever stop going down. That's why I was talking about with these arrows. It continues to go down. As we are going to the left, this function is approaching negative infinity. And if you've never seen the infinity symbol before, you probably have it. If you never have, it kind of looks like a sideways 8, and it means forever and ever, right? It means it keeps on going. It has no end, right? It continues to go. A negative infinity would be down infinity in this case, you know, if we're talking about up and down, right? So as we're approaching the right, or excuse me, as the function goes to the right, what are we approaching that way? We are approaching, you may be able to figure this out, we are approaching this time positive infinity. You don't have to label the plus. I'm going to go ahead and put the plus on there just so for note's sake, so that we know what's going on. Typically, we don't put the plus, just like we don't with, you know, if we're trying to write positive 5, we just write 5. We don't put positive 5, right? Same idea, but I'm going to leave it on. I'm going to put it on this one just for clarity, so you understand what's going on when you're looking at your notes. So that is all of the vocabulary we're going to talk about with analyzing graphs, just kind of understanding what the graph is doing and putting some words into it so we can describe it and explain things. So that's it for this lesson and this unit. If you're one of my students, thanks for being here. I'll see you in class. If you're not one of my students, thanks for being here. Let us know how else we can help you with math or science or anything else. See you later. Bye-bye.